You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Super excited about today's episode. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Zach. I'm really excited as well because these are the guys that we met in Portugal and their company. Well, not necessarily the guests. I'm excited to talk to the guests today, but the company we met and the co-founders. Today we have Dr. Kuba Letek. He is a senior veterinary surgeon who recently joined Wimba as the chief veterinary officer. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Dr. Letek has dedicated his career to advancing the field of veterinary medicine, focusing on innovative and multimodal treatment strategies and orthopedics. His collaboration with experts in veterinary physical medicine has resulted in bespoke treatment protocols, significantly enhancing animal care and rehabilitation. Dr. Kuba, thank you for finding the time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, if I can pitch, I want to pitch Wimba to our listeners. Usually, a lot of the times we log in and we're asking them to, the guests to describe it. But I was so excited. So you guys were a part of Nestle pitch competition in Portugal and World Small Animal Association. You won it. I was bribed by my Polish colleagues to vote for you guys. Not true. I just love your product. So essentially, it's the prosthetics and the braces for animals that are printed on 3D printer and very custom designed for a particular condition. So how's that for the pitch? Did I get it right?
Yes, sure. I mean, the thing is that it's a custom orthotics and prosthetics, and it's all the tech around it and the background, clinical background of the whole process. So yes, you get it right.
So Dr. Kumba, when we were in the green room, just kind of catching up before the show, we got into how did you get involved? And so you're not one of the original founders, but I love the story of how you became involved. And could you share that with our audience?
Sure, of course, because it's actually a really interesting story. Because as you mentioned, I've been not involved into creating the whole project and the startup in the initial phase. I was initially a customer of Wimba. So because of my experience, because of the very heavy loaded clinical days, I was looking for additional solution to implement into my surgical protocols. And I've been searching the web and literature regarding custom solutions for post-operative care rather than physiotherapy. And by accident, I've run into Wimba. And I was struck immediately by the sophisticated design and the technology behind. I just have to mention that I'm a big fan of new tech, especially in the vet industry, and of course in my beloved orthopedic theater. So Wimba was kind of like matching my interest, and of course behind that it is still a simple clinical orthotic devices. And as I mentioned, I was a customer, and I was pushing them quite constantly to develop and bring me more and more options and more tools for my patient, just because I've noticed that the technology behind it is absolutely intriguing. And finally, I was able to address a lot of cases which I was not able to address before. And I think I were pushing them so hard that at some point they were actually bored with me and said, all right, just come on board and let's discover the world of possibilities together. And that's how it all started.
That's really cool.
So if I could summarize, you were a really annoying customer. You annoyed them so much that they gave you a job.
Yeah, long story short, absolutely. That's how we are. That's how the vets are. We constantly, pushing everyone.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the product, because this is a podcast and I want people to envision, and I do want them to go on Wimba website and see for themselves how cool it is. But just walk us through it, because what it is, it's personalized braces and prosthetics. And essentially it is for the customers. There's a very specific and very interesting way of image acquisition to fit these devices perfectly to the patient. Can you talk through that process and how you guys accomplish that?
Yeah, the thing is that just because I'm a clinical vet as well, I have to first introduce you in general, just to so you have a background. So orthotics in general, it's rigid devices that we use to enhance mobility of the musculoskeletal system in our patients, to support them, to let them heal better, to recover better, or to address orthopedic or neurological issues that cause some gait issues or mobility issues. In this vast world of orthotics, we have two different type of orthotics. We have those off-shelf orthotics and something called custom-made orthotics. And the custom-made orthotics is, of course, let's call it a peak product for in this area, because the off-shelf orthotics they usually do not meet our requirements when it comes to patients. They are usually not designed with proper fit. They're usually either too small or too big. They do not address everything what we really would like to address. So then we have a custom orthotics, and before technology outbreak, because that's how we have to name it, custom orthotic solutions or custom orthotic workflow and production was related with a lot of traps and pitfalls related to the timeline and process. So the shape acquisition in custom orthotics were manual. So clinically, when we had a patient that through the clinical process and case selection, we selected for the orthotic solution, we had to make something called a mold or a cast form of the affected limb. So that process was during a clinical environment. The patient usually had to be sedated, and then we were making an impression of the affected limb, usually using a plastic cast or some sort of plaster. And just with the start point of creating of the custom orthotic, so the model, this step was very prone to all human related issues. So the mold and the model that we achieved, that we created after this process, was absolutely related how much effort and how much precision we put into our work. And then after creating a plastic impression, we created a model which then was sculptured again by human hands in orthotic companies, and then it was assembled also by human work and hands. So until the orthotic was delivered to the clinic, nearly all steps were related to human work, and that just created a lot of problems, not only clinically but also related to those mistakes that we could do. The biggest one was, of course, related with the time, because just casting and making a mold, it usually takes 1.5 hours during a very heavy loaded clinical work. So then couple of years ago, we had finally an outbreak, something called a 3D scanner and a 3D printing technology. And this methodology gave us absolutely amazing quality of shape acquisition. But it was related with one significant issue. It was the 3D scanner. 5 years ago, 3D scanner, handheld 3D scanners were quite big, robust pieces of technology, and they were absolutely not anything close to being cheap. Of course, the market demand created some sort of a niche that you could actually rent the 3D scanner, but then you had to plan it quite in advance. You have to wait until delivery, then you have to send it back. It created the 3D scanner a bit more easy to get, but of course, in orthopedics and in the clinical life, we really want ad hoc solution. We want immediate solutions that we can work through with the patient kind of on our table. So then it's Wimba, right? Wimba created something which actually not only is an evolution, but it's a revolution in aspect of the shape acquisition. So they came with the idea of changing your everyday device, the device that all of us have every day in our pocket, a smartphone, and making the best out of it and creating a 3D scanner out of a smartphone. So this was absolutely a biggest outbreak when it comes to technology advancements, because with the simple dolly that Wimba also developed, where you put the iPhone in it and some sort of additional adjustments with the sleeves and scanning mat, they've created a shape acquisition process which was very straightforward, streamlined, and clinically it just takes 15 seconds for the scan and maybe 15 minutes to get the digital model of the limb.
So if I can jump in, just because we're on the radio, I want to kind of make visual for people. I apologize for interrupting, but
Sure.
just because it's hard to imagine. So, you're talking about the scanner. Well, this is also a scanner. The cool thing that I saw at the conference was that you have like a target on the little plastic, basically sheet that you put on the floor. And there's this little 3D printed as well, little dolly that Doctor is talking about here, which is actually making a circular motion around the leg in a circle, and it
Exactly.
takes an image and it reconstructs it into 3D and sends it for printing. Like, that's insanely
Exactly.
cool.
That's
So
15 seconds thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's so amazing. And then, so with the products, so now you acquired an image, and now the products that you have, what are those? Because I've been excited, and I know that it potentially is coming. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but I really want to see the knee brace product, because I'm an urgent care vet, ER vet, and then the most usual scenario for me is to see someone say, "Here's Metacam," and go see a surgeon. But in the meantime, it would be so awesome to put them into some sort of brace so they don't put all the weight on the other leg in the meantime. So can you talk about what devices do you have, and is my cruciate brace coming? So
Actually, this is the question that I came to Wimba as a customer. So that was the reason why I've become part of Wimba. So orthotics supposed to be used on site before surgery, after surgery, and actually just because of the process and the shape acquisition, I was able to put the scanning part into my workup before the surgery. So if I have a dog with a cranial cruciate ligament rupture, and I do all the radiography and radiological evaluation prior to surgery, I actually scan the dog immediately before radiographs. So no matter if I have a implant to put the dog into the orthotics, I already do scanning just because it's so simple and fast. And then because of the 3D printing technology and advancements, I have actually possibility to get the orthotics device before the surgery or on the day of the surgery. And I'm putting the dog just after the surgery into the brace. And answering your question regarding the dogs with cranial cruciate ligament rupture, well, we both know that, or we all know that cranial cruciate ligament, it's not an easy, problem to address, and the braces for the cranial cruciate ligament is absolutely the holy grail of braces. I don't want to give you any dates, but yes, we are very, very much working around this subject, and I hope that within a couple of next week we will have a medically proved, clinically proved stifle brace for the stifle. Yes.
So, Dr. Kuba, question for you. So it sounds like really the innovation here is in, scan to delivery of these products and taking out all of these humans in the middle of that process that were liable to maybe screw things up. So that sounds what the real innovation is. Have I kind of captured it? Okay, great. So where is the company going next? And why are you so excited that you've decided to join the company?
Well, the first thing is I want to add something to your summaries. Like, of course, first is that we're removing all those human-prone, error-prone processes, especially clinical part one. When we vets are actually working multi-level with 5 patients at once, there is always a chaos, especially in orthopedic part of the hospitals and or emergency. So if I'm able just to create a process which is streamlined and doesn't take 1.5 hours during my day, but 15 minutes, what's more, it can be processed not by an orthopedic surgeon, but an assistant or a vet nurse, then I'm very happy to stay in my op room the whole day without actually doing anything regarding the orthotics. The other thing which is very, very important, and we have to mention, it's actually the impact of the 3D printing, because all of us probably know that the 3D printing is just this funny tool that just adds layers by layers. But Wimba actually achieve a step forward. We're using a HP fusion printing, which is absolutely the most precise tool at this point when it comes to 3D printing, and you can print a very sophisticated structures, which are also sophisticated from the mechanical perspective. And one of the key features in the Wimba Orthotics is something which we call Wimba tokens. And this is something which I really would like to address a little bit if we have time, because that's a huge revolution from not only clinical but also technological process. Those tokens are those small devices which we put inside the hinge of the dynamic orthosis. And thanks to those interchangeable tokens, we can actually adjust the range of motion of the orthosis, no matter if it's a stifle or carpal or tarsal orthosis, and steer the recovery and steer the progression of the recovery, steer the treatment actually on the go. We don't have to really order a new orthosis. We can adjust the range of motion just as we want. And this is my protocol that I use every day with my patients. So just for example, when we have some sort of ligament injury in let's say in tarsus, short after surgery, we of course need to immobilize the joint, and then we use something called block tokens. And after a couple of weeks, usually 2 to 4, we're starting to mobilize the joint and mobilize the tissue. So we change the token to 10, 20 degrees of motion, and then after the healing progress, we change it to 40, 60 until we achieve the full range of motion. And I think this is something which technology of the special technology of 3D printing actually gives us this possibility. And also, just to mention the other part of these orthotics, which is called very sophisticated lattice structure. So we build an orthotic around the anatomical structure, but then we need a very properly designed cushioning. And thanks to 3D printing, we actually don't have to think about putting some sort of foam or some sort of neoprene foam inside the orthotics, but we actually print the cushioning with the orthosis. And these lattice structures actually can be designed to meet absolutely every anatomical structure of the scanned area, and that gives us a perfect fit. And we avoid pressure sores, we avoid bruises, we avoid overheating, hot spot, etc., just because the structure itself has so much benefits, clinical benefits and technological benefits, that it's really a lot.
And if I can jump as well, kind of again, just I was so impressed with this cushioning system, just again for a visual. And I do recommend people going on to wimba.vet. So that's WIMBA.vet, and just look yourself at what that cushioning looks like. Because when I'm saying cushioning, I'm imagining like a little bit of styrofoam, or a little bit of like a bandage material or something. It's a mesh that is completely ventilated, and it's applied to pressure points, and it doesn't create any. It's amazing when you hold this thing in your hands. It's like a little spring, but it's very gentle. Really, really cool stuff. We did run out of time. I can talk about these devices a lot, but we're at 20 minutes episode, and we try to have this bite size for our listeners. Anything you would like to mention before we round up and ask your last 2 questions that we didn't cover today?
I mean, as you said, the time is a limitation. We could talk about those orthotics for the whole day. I mean, the technology behind it is so fascinating. And as I said, it's not only fascinating from orthosis devices, but it's fascinating from my orthopedic part. So the future seems to be so fascinating that I really can't wait.
Amazing. Well, then last 2 questions that we usually ask on every episode is there a book, TED Talk, video, YouTube video, anything that inspired you recently that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
I mean, there is plenty of things. All the personal growth books by Simon Sinek. I love this guy. I love recent books. Well, recent, it's a bad word, of Stephen Hawking about the time and this question, the big question book. So yeah, that's not really orthopedic thing, but
no, it doesn't need to be. Thanks for those recommendations.
Yes.
And then the last one is another guest or innovator from the industry that you'd like us to have on the show.
I was recently attending the London Vet Show, and a guy from Signal Pet seems to have a huge technological outbreak, very similar to Wimba, but absolutely different level. It's an AI engine that we use for radiological diagnostics. Looks amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.